It's finally here. St. Patrick's Day will be in just a couple days. And you'll see we've got a couple of St. Patrick's Day blocks, Irish chains of various sorts. And today I've got a third one. Hi, this is Penny Halgren from quiltblocklibrary.com and quiltblocklibrary.tv. Thanks for joining us. Today I'm going to sew this Irish chain patch quilt block together. And it's got a lot of little patches in it, and it could be really hard to sew, but I'm going to use some shortcut methods, and this is going to go really quick. So I'm ready to get started. I hope you are too. Let's go to the sewing machine. I studied this block for a really long time, trying to figure out how I could shortcut a lot of the sewing. And what I've decided to do is break it up into its little 9-patch components and sew these little pieces together. However, you'll notice in this little patch, in this corner, it's got 2 little half-square triangles in the corner. And instead of piecing these and then sewing the rest of it together, what I'm going to do is use a strip piecing method to sew the entire little patch together, and then I'm going to add these little half-square triangles on after the patch is done. So what I figured is that I've got 5 of these, so I've got 1 in each corner, and then actually I've got 1 in the center. So I cut enough fabric here so that I would be able to make strips, and I'm going to make 2 different kinds of strips. I'm going to make a green, white, green strip, and then I'm going to make a white, green, white strip. So I'm going to place these right sides together, and I'm just going to sew them together. Now I have 2 of these strip sets sewn together, and they're just 2 colors. One's green and one's white. And then on one of them I'm going to attach a green strip. The other one I'm going to attach a white strip. So that when I finish I'm going to have it white, green, white, and then this one will be green, white, green. These are ironed, and now I'm ready to put them together and cut them off so that I can make square patches. Since my strips here were 2.5 inches wide, I'm going to cut 2.5-inch sections off. And remember, I need 5 of these. And I'm going to leave them together as I cut them, because I'm just going to carry these over to my sewing machine and sew them together exactly the way I cut them off. So I've got these that are in pairs, and I just am going to sew these together. Now I've got these sets that have 2 rows in them, and in order to complete the 9-patch, I just need to add the bottom row. And voila, we have little 9 patches. This is what I want to create out of this. So in order to accomplish that, what I'm going to need to do is sew half-square triangles onto the corners right here. Now I've got my little half-square triangles cut, and I want to be sure that I'm getting them in the right place. So I need them on opposite corners, there and there, and then I'll lay them down so that they're right sides together and stitch from seam to seam. Now for our final patches, we've got this little 9 patch right here. So that's what that patch looks like. In order to sew this together, the first thing we need to do is attach these half-square triangles together. Now that we have the half-square triangles together, I always like to check and make sure with my pattern that I'm sewing them correctly. So the green goes in the upper corner. Then we just need to sew these 3 pieces together. Now that we have the components of that patch sewn, it's time to just attach the 3. So I'll start at the top and sew these 2 rows together. And now I'm ready to sew the bottom row on. Finally, we have all of the patches sewn together, and all we need to do is put the block together. So the first thing to do is just fold over 2 rows, or 2 columns of patches, and I'll chain sew these together. These sets of patches are sewn together, so now I just need to add the 3rd one onto each row. Okay. The 3 rows are sewn together, so now all I need to do is sew them together to complete the block. And now we're ready for the final seam in this quilt block. Just the top, fold it down so that it's facing right sides together, and we'll just sew this seam. Our Irish chain patch quilt block is all sewn together. This one is quite large, it's 18 inches, and I've used some shortcut methods to sew it together. They may be a little more complicated and take a little more thought than just cutting up squares and half square triangles and sewing them together in rows like you would a regular block. Whichever way you find easier to sew this block together is great, just sew it together. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and thanks for joining me. This is Penny Halgren from quiltblocklibrary.com and quiltblocklibrary.tv. If you're not already there, head on over to quiltblocklibrary.com and download your free pattern of this Irish chain patch quilt block. Thanks again, and peaceful piecing.